Mr. Secretary, was obviously you support the extension of the payroll tax through the Obama administration. Our Congressman is House Majority Leader Eric Cantor, and they've pushed a plan that they think is going to pass today in Congress that includes the extension of this Keystone XL pipeline. Do you think that that doesn't have any place in this discussion, or do you think that that's a good idea, or do you think it's just kind of white noise and political posturing?
I think it's political posturing because I don't think it has any business on this issue. This issue is simply one which the Congress is facing, and that is whether the Congress is going to allow the American taxpayer to have $1,000 more in their pocket on average this next year, 2012. If the Congress doesn't act, then they're going to have a $1,000 tax spike that's going to be effective on January 1. And so the focus should be on that issue, and it shouldn't be confused with the issue of the Keystone Pipeline. The Keystone Pipeline is a very important issue, something which the State Department is giving a lot of attention to. There are issues concerning the placement of the pipeline in Nebraska over the Ogallala Aquifer and the exact routing, and those issues are being worked through in a process by the State Department. But it should not be we should not let the payroll tax extension essentially be held hostage to another issue which is moving forward on its own independent process.
Republicans would argue that the president is attaching this to another issue, and that would be a tax hike on the wealthy. How do you see the two being different? Is that a different issue too, or how can you combine those two issues and the Keystone XL project be a separate thing?
The Keystone Pipeline is essentially a project which will create jobs, and there are issues with it, but we have been very involved on the Keystone Pipeline, and it's a process which involves both Canada, the United States, and a number of different states. That's moving forward in a correct process, and I expect that it's going to have the correct outcome for the United States of America. The issue of the payroll tax and the way that you pay for it, what the president has proposed is that we end the ways of this country, which we have adopted in prior administrations, which essentially is we create programs and we fund for things and we don't pay for them. So what the president did is when he put forward the Jobs Act, which included the extension of the payroll tax and the extension of the unemployment insurance program, is he said this is a good way in which we can pay for it. So he has suggested that to the members of Congress, and he's waiting for the members of Congress, if they have an alternative, to come back and say how they're going to do it. But it's different in substance than dealing with the Keystone Pipeline, which really is a very extraneous issue to the question of whether or not we have a payroll tax cut.
Now, Republicans would argue that hiking taxes on anybody is not the way to go about creating additional jobs, even if it is the very wealthy. How would you respond to that?
I think that the proposal that is in the Democrats' hands in Congress has been to look at those who are wealthier and having them pay their fair share. So for all your viewers, I would say, how many of you actually make over $1 million a year? It's interesting that people like Warren Buffett and others are supportive of the president's approach because they believe that they should also be paying their fair share. We need to have a sense of responsibility in this country that says that we're all in this together. And right now there are a lot of people in America who are experiencing the pain of what have been some very economic times, and putting $1,000 a year on average in their pocket for next year is something that would be good for them, and it would be good for the economy. And so we're asking those who can afford to do it to pay a little bit more.
Do you think that not extending this payroll tax holiday could have a negative impact on the economy? Could it actually make things worse?
Absolutely. Independent economists, these are not the president's economists or anybody else, but they're saying that a failure to extend the payroll tax will mean that we won't have the same job creation. We've had many months now of steady job creation. We need to do better. But the payroll tax itself will create somewhere between 600,000 and 1 million jobs in the next year alone. So it's part of it's a significant component in all of our efforts to bring the economy back.
All right, Mr. Secretary, anything else you can think to add?
I think you got it covered. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, sir. You have a good day.
You too.